Why do so many relationships begin with excitement, but end with confusion, frustration, and pain? At the beginning, everything feels promising. You meet someone new. The conversations flow easily. The chemistry feels strong. And for a moment, you believe this connection might finally be different. But slowly, something begins to change. The small misunderstandings turn into arguments. Communication becomes difficult. Problems are avoided instead of solved. And eventually you realize something important. The problem was never just the relationship. It was emotional maturity. Many people grow older, but not everyone grows emotionally. Age and emotional maturity are not the same thing. A person can be successful, intelligent, and experienced in life, and still struggle to understand their own emotions. And when two people who are still learning how to manage their emotions try to build a relationship together, the result can often feel unstable. One of the reasons emotional maturity is rare is because it is rarely taught. In school, we learn mathematics, we learn history, we learn how to build careers. But very few people are ever taught how to understand their emotions. Very few people are taught how to communicate during conflict. And even fewer people are taught how to love someone without letting their fears control their behavior. Because emotional maturity does not come automatically with age. It develops through self-awareness, humility, and the willingness to grow. An emotionally mature person understands something important. They understand that their feelings are real, but their reactions are still their responsibility. They know how to pause before reacting. They know how to listen when someone else is hurt. And they know how to say something that many people struggle to say. I was wrong. But this is where another obstacle appears: ego. Ego makes emotional maturity difficult, because ego does not like admitting mistakes. Ego prefers blaming someone else. Ego prefers winning arguments instead of solving problems. But healthy relationships require something different. They require humility. They require two people who are willing to grow together instead of constantly defending themselves. The Bible gives a powerful description of emotional wisdom. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James chapter 1, verse 19. Those few words describe something that is surprisingly rare: the ability to listen before reacting, the ability to slow down instead of letting anger take control, and the ability to understand another person's feelings without immediately becoming defensive. Another reason emotional maturity is rare is because many people enter relationships while they are still healing from previous pain. Someone who's experienced abandonment may fear being left again. Someone who has experienced betrayal may struggle to trust. And someone who grew up without emotional safety may not know how to create it in a relationship. These wounds are not visible, but they quietly shape how people love. That is why emotional maturity often requires healing. It requires looking honestly at your own patterns. It requires learning from past mistakes. And sometimes it requires letting go of behaviors that once felt normal but were never healthy. But here is an important truth. Emotional maturity does not mean perfection. Emotionally mature people still make mistakes. They still experience fear, frustration, and disappointment. The difference is how they respond to those emotions. Instead of attacking, they communicate. Instead of avoiding problems, they address them. Instead of blaming, they reflect. This kind of growth does not happen overnight. It develops slowly through experience, reflection, and humility. And for many people, faith becomes an important part of that process. Because spiritual growth often teaches the same qualities that emotional maturity requires: patience, humble understanding. The Bible reminds us that wisdom is something we must actively seek. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 7. In other words, growth does not happen accidentally. It happens when we intentionally choose to learn and mature. The good news is that emotional maturity can be developed. It can grow when you take time to understand yourself. It can grow when you heal from past experiences. And it can grow when you decide that peace matters more than winning arguments. Because the healthiest relationships are not built on perfection. They are built on two people who are committed to growing together. Two people who are willing to listen. Two people who are willing to learn. Two people who are willing to become better versions of themselves. So if you have experienced relationships where emotional maturity was missing, do not assume that healthy love does not exist. Sometimes it simply means that both people were still learning how to grow. And growth takes time. But when emotional maturity begins to develop, something beautiful happens. Communication becomes clearer, conflict becomes manageable, and love begins to feel safe instead of confusing. If you are open, pray with me. God, you see the relationships that struggle because of misunderstanding and emotional wounds. Give us wisdom to understand our own hearts. But teach us patience when emotions feel overwhelming. Help us grow into people who love with honesty, humility, and emotional maturity. Guide us toward relationships that reflect your peace and your wisdom. Amen. Hey stranger, emotional maturity may be rare, but it is not impossible. And when two people who are willing to grow meet each other, love stops feeling like a battle, finally begins to feel like peace.